Imagine if toys were alive. That has been the vision of Toy Story since its inception in 1996. The series itself has broken many boundaries when it comes to computer animation, but more importantly, the films themselves were all masterpieces of storytelling. But why? In this video essay, we'll be exploring the themes and questions that made Toy Story such a success. It goes without saying this video might come with spoilers. Imagine that your whole existence is to please somebody else, to be played with, to be used in the imagination of somebody else's stories. That your whole character and personality were under the influence of somebody else's mind. That you merely belong to fulfill somebody else's destiny. That's exactly what being a toy in Toy Story is. In fact, that's exactly what being a character in any movie is. We interpret and explore the complex internal world inside our minds by creating a fictional external world. One that doesn't necessarily copy our own physical reality. Magic doesn't really exist. Spaceships don't make a sound when they explode in space. And Barbie would fall over. But they all copy and explore our emotional realities in an effort to understand the world around us, which we don't. From the dawn of time, we've been doing this, gaining technology along the way to tell our stories better and play with reality more. Now, since the invention of computers, Pixar have been testing and modelling our potential futures in ever more sophisticated ways. Toy Story might be a silly kids film about animated toys, but it also tries to deeply explore the human condition. In the first Toy Story movie, we learn the importance of friendship. No matter how physically different the toys are from one another, they all accept each other and somehow make friends. It's through these allegiances that the characters determine right from wrong and good from evil. Without the combined forces of Woody and the gang, the team would never get out of sticky situations or survive. Woody initially is extremely jealous of Buzz when he realises he's no longer Andy's favourite toy. This even leads Woody to changing his core values, becoming violent, evil and destructive. But it's through realising that his jealousy is in itself more destructive for him than it is for Buzz that he realises that working together is more likely to produce a beneficial outcome for them both. When he sees Buzz breaking down, he feels guilt, which encourages him to do the right thing. Buzz suffers a major identity crisis, going from believing that he is a space ranger to suddenly realising that he is just a measly plastic toy. His sense of self-worth initially lowers before he realises that making a child happy is in itself a much worthier cause. In the first film, Sid is definitely portrayed as the evil character, modifying toys for his own amusement. Although by the fourth film, using one's imagination in the same way is seen as a positive. Sid isn't evil because he creates ugly abused characters, but because he takes beloved playthings away from children who need them. It's for this that by the end of the film, the toys gang up on Sid to escape back to Andy. By Toy Story 2, we learnt that ultimately, inanimate objects have an expiry date. The toy soldiers, Wheezy, Peep are all proof that these characters' value is based off their playability. Without being able to be played with, they are worthless characters. Woody has the opportunity to be forever preserved as the plastic and stuffing he is, as a museum collection along with other collectibles, never wearing away or getting broken. On the other hand, he could stay with Andy and face the same consequence that Jessie faced, being played with less, getting dusty, and eventually facing the trash. Woody is himself like the absent father of Andy, dreading the day the child will outgrow him and leave home, making his role as a father figure to Andy absent and making his purpose redundant. But in the end, Woody faces up to the reality that the way Stinky Pete behaves is selfish and envious, and just like the first film, will lead to a destructive reality. Although the physical value of the toys, and therefore the life force keeping them sustained, will deplete with time in Andy's house, the emotional value will be preserved, fulfilling an emotional purpose, and that was the sacrifice the toys were willing to make. Eventually, with all childhoods comes the time when you have to realise you're no longer a child, and that it's time to move on. The choices that we make at this stage are crucial to our success in life, as they are in Toy Story 3 for both Woody and Andy. At first, Woody and the gang go to daycare, assuming that it would be a peaceful heaven, where they will be eternally played with and therefore fulfill their emotional purpose as toys. But they soon realise that it's a corrupt prison led by Lotso, an abandoned toy full of resentment for human beings since being abandoned. By now the toys are mature enough to realise Lotso, being the resentful, manipulative villain that he is worth escaping from. But the toys aren't escaping from him per se, but rather the destructive nature of the unsuitably aged children who will play with them in ways they weren't designed to be played with. They're hoping to get back to a reality where they can live in Andy's attic, knowing that they have fulfilled their purpose but also preserved their playable value by not destroying the plastic and fabric they are made from, so as to wait peacefully in Andy's attic in the hope of being played with again. But it becomes clear that despite all their efforts to escape Sunnyside, they just, like most other toys, will eventually face a reality of the trash. So when they are at their last moments, they reach out and lock eyes with each other, showing that they love each other. What they realise in that moment of destruction is that their whole purpose isn't to be played with or preserved, but to love. And it's through that love and the friendships they built that they are saved by the aliens. Although the toys move on to Bonnie's house, and although towards the end of the film comes the realisation that change will mean that nothing will be the same again, there's this sense that because the toys, Andy and his mum, showed unconditional love towards each other, they are preserved throughout this transition, sustaining their existence and showing compassion and good over evil. By the fourth film, we learn that plans don't always pan out. This was the case for Woody, who went from top toy under Andy to bottom of the pack with Bonnie. This takes a while to sink in for Woody. It's only when Bonnie creates Forky that he realises his purpose is not to be top toy, but to keep Bonnie happy no matter the cost. In this movie, we learnt that stuffing and plastic make up the toys. When Woody presents Bonnie with these raw materials that were meant for the trash, she creates something that means something to her. Forky then assumes he is trash, but Woody, being Woody, realises his purpose as a toy, so as to convince him to stay with Bonnie. Woody, realising he's a toy at first, is super overprotective when Gabby wants to steal his voice box, believing that it will destroy his value as a toy. But then, when he comes to the realisation that his voice box inside Gabby can make a sad child happy, he realises his value is worth more than the raw materials that make him up, or even his value as a product to be bought and sold. Woody's value is in making children happy. Throughout all the previous movies, the toys have been trying to return to the status quo, or by the third, at least create a new status quo equal to the one before. But by the fourth, we realise that change can actually be positive. Just because Woody escapes to the carnival, loses his voice box and becomes a lost toy, does not mean the change isn't positive for him. He rediscovers the love of his life, Bo Peep, and manages to fulfill his own personal destiny by living with her. By moving on from his lifelong lesson that his whole purpose is simply to please other people, he can finally accept that his purpose can sometimes be to please himself. Throughout all the other movies, when Woody tries to abandon the gang don't take it too well. But in this movie, they accept it. Why? Because true friends want what's best for Woody. In the other movies, Woody being abandoned would mean Woody would eventually be less happy. But in this movie, him abandoning the gang means that he will be more happy because he gets to spend more time with Bo Peep. What we learn in these movies is that love is there to make people happy. The value of love isn't through materialism or purpose, but through selflessness. It's through selflessness that even these eternal, manufactured beings find a purpose that makes even them happy. Toy Story was a masterpiece because it explored this entire complex world and displayed it through simple, enjoyable stories. But do you agree with me? Join in the debate below and subscribe.